Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the 2022, the award ceremony for the 2022 Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship. We've had a good turnout. I think most of the applicants have come or perhaps are on Zoom. Do we have the images of folks on Zoom, Iwamura-san? The people on Zoom? So I see we have regular members, associate members, and then most important of all, the applicants. And thank you all for your interest and for your, really for your interest in journalism, because that's why we're here, right? So we have folks, if we can get the Zoom participants up on the screen, we have, I believe, 5 people participating via Zoom, perhaps more, from as far away as San Diego, California. 7 people on Zoom. So if we can get them on the screen, it'd be nice to see them. You probably don't need to see me. So anyway, so my name is Martin Fackler. I'm the chair of the scholarship committee. And it's my great honor to welcome the aspiring young journalists. We had the great honor of reviewing your work and getting to know you a bit via your submissions and hopefully the folks on Zoom as well when they appear. I wanted to say first off that it was a real privilege and honor to serve as the chair of the scholarship committee. We had a tough job. There were a lot of really good submissions, really good people, really talented journalists. And I think we had more submissions this year than I can remember. We had 15 applications from 14 people, which, as far as I know, is a record. I don't know if anybody is aware of a larger number, certainly not in our memory. I wanted to start tonight by saying thank you to the folks who made this possible. First off, to my fellow members of the scholarship committee, David McNeil, Hans Grimmel, and then we have Monzerl Huck, who should be online. I think he can see us. We just can't see him, right? So, hey Monzerl, how you doing? I was really blessed to have 3 experienced journalists join the committee and to make this happen, right? And it really was a group effort. We all had to get together and again, it was a very tough job reviewing all these really wonderful submit. There we go. There we are. You all are visible now. So Monzor, do you want to give a quick wave? There he is. I was really blessed and fortunate to have 3 experienced journalists to help out with this. I also want to give a quick thank you to our guest speaker, Annalise Geisbert. I will introduce her properly a bit later when she speaks, but I just wanted to give her a quick shout out now. I also want to say thank you to the club, Drini and the leadership, Iwamura-san and the staff. You all really make this possible. Thank you so much. Everyone else at the club. I mean, there's a commitment at the club to make this happen, right? Because we believe in the values and what this scholarship stands for. And to everyone here tonight, and most of all to the applicants. You guys really showed an interest and you made the effort to apply. You want to join, I think we can very humbly say the greatest profession in the world. Not always the financially most lucrative profession in the world, but the important things often don't make money, right? We're so happy and honored and pleased that you share our conviction in the importance of real journalism, of serious journalism. So first, I want to take a moment to talk about the scholarship itself. So the Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship was established by the club really to support the next generation of journalists, right? And to support the kind of journalism that we think is important, right? Public affairs, public interest journalism. And we want to do that by offering financial rewards and also recognition to students who are interested in pursuing a career in public interest journalism, in serious journalism. Every year, we give 3 awards, one in pen, which is for written submissions, one in photography, and one in video. The scholarships are open to anyone, any nationality who is a student in Japan, and also to Japanese students abroad. Each applicant submits samples of their work, as these folks have done this year, and the committee reviews those to choose the winners. And as I said, this year we had a very large show of interest. We had 15 applications from 14 applicants. So the club, the Foreign Correspondence Club, which Drini will talk about in a moment, was founded in 1945. So we're now in our 77th year. The scholarship isn't quite that old, but this is actually its 52nd year, 5-2, 52nd year. It was founded in 1970 on the 25th anniversary of the club. And it was founded basically to give back to society, right? That the Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan wanted to give back, and to give back in the way that we've been doing ever since, which is supporting the next generation of journalists, right? In those days, we had a member whose name was Swadesh DeRoy. He was an early proponent of the scholarship, of the club having a scholarship, right, back in 1970. He helped launch this scholarship, and he helped finance it. He was also one of the first chairs of the scholarship committee. So in some ways, I guess he's my senpai. Swadesh was from Bengal, in what at that time was British India, right, the colony of India. As a journalist, he was able to challenge barriers and overcome obstacles, and became one of the most prominent foreign correspondents in Tokyo, and also a very prominent member of this club. He was president of the Foreign Correspondence Club from 1979 to 1980. I'm not sure, Monzuru, when were you president? I'm not sure if he or you were the first president.
So this was first. I was 2009, 2010.
Okay. But Swadesh was very liked at the club. I may be one of the few folks in this room who still remember Swadesh.
Yes.
I joined in 1997, the club, when I was a cub reporter at Bloomberg News, covering stock markets, before I got my lucky break of covering Sokaya and the underworld. But I remember Swadesh. He was a real gentleman. He was a regular here. He loved it here. He came often. And when he passed away in 2001, the club decided to name the scholarship in his honor. So since 2001, it's been the Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship, which makes today the 21st annual Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship. So, and we honor him today. You know, we want to promote the values that Swadesh believed in, right? And that the club believes in, right? And we want to support his mission of supporting the next generation of journalists. So I think this might be a good moment if I could ask the club president, Subendrini Kakuchi, to come forward. And could you speak to us briefly, Drini, about the club and its values, and tell us a bit about the FCCJ?
I think I've got to put this a little lower. Thanks, Martin. Well, I am the president for the past year, and I hope we have a new board pretty soon, so I'm on my way out. But it is, I'm from Sri Lanka, and Swadesh, as Martin says, was from India. So we do have a kind of very diverse club. And is it the first time you've been here? Like, do you feel the aura? Kind of, you know. I mean, it is a wonderful club, and I'm really honored to be a member. It was, as Martin said, it was founded in 1945, which is a crucial time for Japan. Japan had lost the war, and we had General MacArthur, who head of the U.S. occupation, who came in and started the club. I think there were hundreds of journalists who had come to Japan to report on how Japan was, going to come back to global society, to the global world. And it was a very exciting time. And this is where, not really this club, but in Marunouchi, I think, it was a smaller club. This is where General MacArthur would do his press conferences and report on bringing democracy and freedom of the media, speech to Japan. And I've been going through the book that we have. I mean, it's available at the front desk as well. And it talks about the club being like a mini United Nations, which means that there were lots of journalists from mostly the West, I think, that came here to report on Japan, and then later the Korean War in 1952. And also Asia was coming out of Western colonization. So it was a time when really the freedom of speech, media, democracy, all those values were coming into the world. And this place, the Foreign Correspondents Club, played a big role in that. I joined later than Martin, I think. And I came to Japan from Sri Lanka, which had been under the British rule for a long time. And I thought in Japan I could find another way, of values and Asia, and how Asia was going to identify itself again. I've stayed since. I've been here a long time, and I'm glad I did. I think as a journalist, you've got to find your way. What do you want to tell the world? Your story. And I think all of you, I mean, the new generation, you've got so many new tools now to put that message across. But the value of journalism is the same. And I'm really glad you applied. And we also have a membership category, by the way, a student membership category. So you can also join and meet up with us. Thank you very much, Martin.
Yeah, what excitement. You guys can hang out with us. No, but seriously, I think that's a signed photograph of MacArthur behind you, I think. But so the club does go back to 1945, arriving with the occupation forces, the Allied occupation forces. And so the history has changed. At that time it really was, picking up the pieces from a cataclysmic global war. And over time, I think, Tanaka Kakue, the Japanese prime minister, was toppled basically here when he gave a press conference and confronted questions he wasn't ready for and didn't have good answers for. But Drini mentioned how each of you have to find your own way forward and your own style of being a journalist. And I think that's a good segue to introduce our next speaker. Annalise Geisbert, you've so kindly agreed to speak to us today. Annalise, just to quickly introduce her, she's an investigative journalist based in Tokyo. She currently writes for Mangabe, which is a US-based environmental, kind of a vertical, right? A new media vertical focused on environmental issues, and I've seen that Annalise writes about energy and issues like that. She previously worked as a reporter at what's now called the Tokyo Investigative Newsroom Tansa. It used to be called the Waseda Chronicle. It's an enormously important media organization in Japan. It's the first investigative journalism NGO, not for profit, and I think Annalise will talk a bit about that. But it's investigative journalism is hard to do anywhere, and it proves to be enormously difficult to do in Japan, and is frankly very rare in Japan. Annalise, I think you were working on cross-border investigative projects with similar not-for-profits in other countries, kind of a global network of investigative journalism not-for-profits. One reason I wanted Annalise to speak is because I don't think age-wise she's a whole lot different from you all, but she has accomplished a lot. And I wanted her to talk about her way of doing journalism and how you see the field now. And I hope that I'll give her a warm welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, can you all hear me okay? Perfect. Everyone on Zoom too? Okay, so thanks for the wonderful introduction, Martin, and for the opportunity to speak here tonight. And hello, everyone. It's great to meet you. I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to talk to all of you at dinner, but I'm happy that you all seem friendly. So despite what Martin said, I am neither a famous nor a wildly successful journalist, and nor did I even study journalism in school. But somehow I snuck into this profession, and I really enjoy it. And so, as Martin introduced, I have a bit of experience in investigative journalism as well, which I'll talk more about later. But for now, let me start with a proper self-introduction. So I was born in 1993, so I'm not that much older than you guys, I think. I grew up in Seattle in the United States, and I attended university in the US as well. My university did not offer a journalism degree, but even if they did, I'm not quite sure I would have chosen it back then. I did, however, work at the school paper as a copy editor, so that's correcting articles for grammar and style, and fact-checking them. And so, though that work experience for 3 years sort of gave me my first taste and my first lessons in journalism. These lessons were taught with a university student's typical cheek, such as, never change a quote. If it sounds stupid, that's the person who said it's fault. And if it's a fact, check it. However, in those 3 years working at the school paper, I only ever wrote 2 articles. After graduating university, I moved to Japan, where I first worked for nonprofits for 2 years, and then for 2 years as a part-time translator. During that time, I started to write more. I wrote a few articles, but they were mainly reviews or opinion pieces. At the same time, I was also translating news articles in a freelance or a volunteer capacity, which is how I discovered my previous workplace, which Martin mentioned, Tokyo Investigative Newsroom Tansa. I found Tansa stories fascinating when I first read them, and they were written in a more engaging way than what I imagined typical news articles to be. But I suspected Tansa of being a broke nonprofit, which, when I made contact, turned out to be true. So I decided to offer them my translation services at a discount, just to get my foot in the door. And after a year of translating for them, I joined the team as a reporter, which is my first experience working full-time in journalism. So I'll talk more about my time at Tansa in a moment, but just to briefly fast forward to the present, as Martin mentioned, I became a freelance journalist about 6 months ago, and I'm still based in Tokyo. And during that time, I've mainly been reporting on the environmental and health impacts of using woody biomass for electricity generation. So I warn you, if you ask me about biomass, I will talk about it, so please be careful. But now, back to Tansa and investigative journalism. So, what is Tansa? Tansa is a Japanese nonprofit investigative newsroom that was founded in 2017 by former reporters from the Asahi Shimbun. The organization was, as you heard, originally called Waseda Chronicle, and it got its start as a project of the Waseda University Institute for Journalism. Tansa is modeled on nonprofit investigative media overseas, such as Newstapa in South Korea and The Reporter in Taiwan. The journalists who created Tansa believed it was no longer possible to do meaningful investigative journalism within the traditional Japanese media, including their own workplace at the time, the Asahi Shimbun. They denounced the tendency for Japanese reporters to trade access for information, which meant that the stories reported were sometimes closer to the government's version of events than the full truth. The name Tansa means to investigate. Although the Japanese word for investigative journalism is chosa hodo, Tansa uses the word tansa hodo to signify that they investigate even deeper than the traditional media. So Tansa, then known as Waseda Chronicle in the beginning, launched with an investigation that exposed stealth marketing in news articles by Kyodo News, which, as you know, is Japan's biggest newswire. These stealth marketing articles had been commissioned by the Dentsu Group on behalf of the advertising corporation's clients. But the articles were not marked as compensated. They looked just like normal news. So Tansa's series exposing this had a big impact, with both Dentsu and Kyodo promising to improve their business practices. And Tansa received a Supporter of the Free Press Award from this very club. Over the years, Tansa has investigated topics such as Japan's post-war forced sterilization program, doctors' additional income from pharmaceutical companies, misuse of public funds intended for COVID recovery, and industrial pollution, just to name a few topics. Tansa is also a member of the Global Investigative Journalism Network, which is exactly what it sounds like, a global network of investigative journalists or investigative journalism organizations. And so this point brings me to my next topic, which is what I did at Tansa, which is international collaboration. So, in my opinion, purely by virtue of being able to speak English, my role at Tansa was to coordinate the newsroom's involvement in cross-border investigations. Cross-border investigations are when journalists from 2 or more countries, representing 2 or more newsrooms, or, of course, freelancers, team up to investigate and report on a specific topic that is relevant to both or all of them. The thinking goes that, as bad actors, whether they be governments, corporations, or criminals, as they increasingly work across borders, so too must the journalists who investigate them. However, in most cases, we journalists are really only familiar with a limited geographic area and culture, and a limited number of languages. So it makes sense for us to team up. So I'd like to talk in a little bit more depth about one of the cross-border investigations that I participated in while at Tansa, including some of the things that worked well for me as a beginner and some of the times when I struggled. So to briefly describe this investigation. This was an investigation into human rights abuses on a Chinese distant water tuna fishing fleet called Dalian Ocean Fishing, or DOF for short. In the 2-year span between 2019 and 2020, at least 10 crew died on DOF's fleet. Most were young migrant workers, the majority from Indonesia. Testimonies by former crew revealed that they had been subjected to an average of 16 to 18 hours of work per day, as well as poor nutrition and potentially unsanitary water. When crew got sick, in many cases, they were not taken to a hospital for proper medical care. DOF, the company, fished for sashimi-grade tuna. According to company documents published in 2014, up to 80% of the tuna caught by DOF was sold to Mitsubishi Corporation's seafood arm, Toyo Reizo, which DOF claimed to be its only customer in Japan. The Japan link was why Tansa was invited to participate in this investigation, which was led by the environmental media Mangabe, which, as you heard, is where I write now, and the Environmental Reporting Collective. The DOF investigation team comprised of about 6 core members: the investigation lead, an overseeing editor, a journalist in Indonesia who interviewed former crew, myself, who was investigating the Japan side, and freelance reporters in South Korea and China who looked into other aspects of DOF's labor supply chain and their business. We all shared our findings so that each team member could have a more complete picture of the overall investigation while still being able to focus on their area of expertise. The questions that it was my job to answer were, had Japan imported tuna from DOF while the abuses and deaths were occurring? And were Toyo Reizo and Mitsubishi still DOF's Japanese customers? It seemed simple enough at first. After we were briefed on the story, or the investigation idea, my editor came up with a game plan. We would go to Japan's major fishing ports where tuna is landed, and we would check for DOF boats. But when I mentioned this strategy to the investigation lead, an American named Philip, he said that it would be impossible. As a distant water fishing company, DOF boats almost never went to port. Despite being only 50 meters long and housing a crew of around 30 men, the boat stayed at sea for a year or two in order to save valuable time and fuel. Instead, 110-meter-long refrigerated cargo ships met up with these fishing vessels on the open ocean in order to receive their catch and bring it to market. These refrigerated cargo ships, also known as reefers, were equipped with 3 stories of deep freezers and were capable of carrying literal boatloads of fish. And although some reefers that picked up tuna from DOF were managed by companies with links to Mitsubishi, some were not. We needed to clarify which tuna went where. So in order to track these vessels, I turned to 2 of investigative journalists' favorite tools, databases and spreadsheets. Although data on transfers of fish at sea is not public information, vessel ownership data, and to a certain extent, vessel location data is. In particular, one database that tracked fishing vessels allowed me to see so-called encounters at sea, which is when 2 vessels are next to each other, unmoving, for a few hours. So it would be likely that some sort of transfer was happening. In a spreadsheet, I made a timeline that listed all of these encounters between DOF vessels and the reefers that were either operated by Japanese companies or foreign reefers which made port in Japan. So basically, any tuna that might have come to Japan. Putting everything in a timeline also helped me guess what encounters were possible, even if data was missing. These data gaps were significant, and they unfortunately included the DOF vessel that had seen the greatest number of crew deaths, 5 on one ship. This vessel appeared to have never broadcast its location data, so there was virtually no information on where it went and and what ships it met with. Once my timeline was about as complete as it was going to get from data alone, I started calling the companies operating the refrigerated cargo ships. In most cases, they refused to talk to me, even when I said I just wanted to ask some questions about the reefers they operate. Some of the companies' phone numbers that I had found online were even out of operation when I called. However, I got really lucky. One employee at a shipping company who picked up the phone was friendly. On the phone, he confirmed that DOF had been one of his shipping company's clients. He even asked me a question. DOF hadn't requested any tuna pickups since fall of 2019. Did I know what had happened to the company? We speculated together that they might have tried to expand too quickly and got into financial trouble. But to be honest, I was really stressed during this phone call. I was worried that this employee might ask why I was reporting on DOF. Earlier in this investigation, when I had explained to potential sources, such as, for example, the government's fisheries agency, that I was investigating abuse of crew, any potential friendly atmosphere usually disappeared instantly. No one wanted to be associated with what, as we called it at Tansa, the slave tuna. Eager to end the call, I finished the conversation and hung up the phone. Then, I immediately realized I had made a mistake. This talkative employee could probably tell me about the potential transfers of tuna that weren't in the open data, including the vessel from which 5 crew had died. From my spreadsheet, I knew it was a possibility that his company had been involved. I called back, honestly confessing that I had forgotten something. Hoping he still would not get suspicious about why I was so curious about specific details, I asked if his company's reefers had picked up tuna from this one specific DOF vessel. I heard his keyboard click as he checked his records. Yes, he said, they had, on August 15, 2019. That tuna was unloaded at Shimizu Port in Japan. I was so close to getting the information I needed. Did he know if the tuna was then purchased by Toyo Reizo or Mitsubishi Corporation? Well, it's possible, he said, but his records only stated that, once unloaded at the port, the tuna was consigned to a company called TM. I thanked him and hung up again, breathing a huge sigh of relief and feeling, for the first time, a bit like an investigative journalist. The TM thing, in the end, wasn't a major hiccup. Once again, using DOF documents and open data, we soon learned that it was a go-between for DOF and Toyo Reizo. When, in the final stages of the investigation, I asked the Mitsubishi PR office whether they or their group company Toyo Reizo had purchased this specific tuna from the vessel where the greatest number of deaths occurred, they didn't deny it. When Tansa published the results of our investigation, I wrote about, first of all, the abuse of crew had experienced on board, using interview transcripts our reporting partner had shared. Then I explained the relationship between Toyo Reizo / Mitsubishi and DOF, which Tansa's investigation had confirmed. And finally, I wrote about how the system of refrigerated cargo ships and transferring catch at sea isolates vulnerable crew, thereby facilitating their abuse. Looking back now at the investigation, I'm happy with how I made use of open data, but it's clear that my interviewing technique still needed a lot of work. I was still in the process of getting comfortable and finding my own style. Although at the time, I observed some of my colleagues at Tansa putting uncooperative sources' toes to the fire a little bit, I never quite felt comfortable being confrontational, and I was especially conscious that I was a foreigner in Japan asking these difficult questions. So now I keep my tone during interviews polite and friendly, no matter who I'm interviewing, but I don't censor any of my questions. So I urge all of you to find your own style as reporters as well, without feeling like you need to emulate anyone. So I'll leave you with a few final thoughts based on my experience in journalism in general. The first is that there's always more information out there. An individual reporter never really has the whole story, and that's a fact I'm always conscious of when I have to finally write something. I know there's so much that I still don't know. There are documents in languages you don't speak, sources you weren't able to access, and internal biases that you aren't aware of. But on the flip side, there are so many opportunities to learn more as well, whether it's collaborating with fellow journalists, talking with an expert who has a different perspective, finding a new database you didn't know existed, meeting a helpful source where you didn't expect one, or glancing at a word, photo, or name that sparks a new idea. There will always be limits to your own understanding, but never think that you yourself as a journalist are limited, whether by experience or by convention. So I hope my story has shown that there are many pathways into journalism. As I said, I was a relative latecomer. And I hope that the story has challenged the idea that investigative journalism requires years of reporting experience. What matters more, in my opinion, is taking advantage of the opportunities that come your way, thinking critically about the information in front of you, and being willing to speak up about wrongdoing by the powerful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Annalise. I really enjoyed that. You made me remember when I was starting out in journalism. I had an editor who told me two things I never forgot. One was it's the greatest job in the world because you can ask anybody in the world questions. The second is if you meet somebody who intimidates you, somebody powerful, somebody who you're like, oh, can I really talk to this person? Just imagine that person in his underwear, which has a great way of kind of breaking the ice mentally. You don't tell that person that, of course. But no, but seriously, I really wanted Annalise to talk because I wanted her to. What the work that Tansa does is so important. It's a different model of journalism, right? The not-for-profit model. It just shows there are different ways to do journalism, and it also shows how the industry is changing, right? The big, established media companies, especially in Japan, you kind of wonder what their future is, to be honest. And it's what comes next in Japan. Tansa is one of those new efforts that's appeared. And it fills a real gap. The founder, Watanabe Makoto, was a part of what was called the Special Investigative Unit at the Asahi Shimbun. They got a lot of splash after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident for a series of scoops. And then when the paper, for complex reasons that David and I had to investigate at various times, decided to capitulate to the Abe administration. Watanabe-san and his crew basically got thrown out into the fire. I mean, they were blamed for mistakes, and the operation was basically the investigative unit inside the Asahi Shimbun was basically shut down. And Watanabe-san and his comrade at that time was Kimura Hideaki. They quit the Asahi, which, it's this is Japan. You don't quit a job like that, right? And they started a little NGO in a single room at Waseda University. And it's still, an operation that I think has, struggles in its own way just because of the nature of the beast, right? But at the same time, it does work that none of the big media can do. I haven't seen any of the media, especially the first series they did on Kyodo Tsushin, right? Kyodo was basically running advertisements for pharmaceuticals being paid by Dentsu, right? And not telling the readers that these were actually advertisements, right? And so, that was their first series, which, believe me, endeared them dearly to the Japanese mainstream media. We just never forgave them for exposing that problem. But the work they do is so important, and I really wanted you all to get a chance to kind of hear what, not only how Annalise had done it, but also what Tansa was doing. And I think going forward, you're going to see a lot more new experiments, new ideas, innovation. The business model in Japan is broken. You watch the Asahi Shimbun, their subscription numbers are doing this. They have no idea what digital is. Their idea of like responding to the modern era is putting bigger font on their newspaper because their readers are now over 75. I mean, seriously, but no one has appeared to replace them, right? So it's a very dynamic and interesting time in Japan, but I feel like it hasn't really kind of broken through yet. So after all that, it's now time for the main event. So the moment that we've all been waiting for. As I said, this year the scholarship committee faced some truly difficult choices. We had a lot of just excellent submissions. And to be honest, we wanted to throw money at all of you guys. But unfortunately, journalism is not a wealthy business. So, and my name's not Jeff Bezos. So we had to make do with our 3 fellowships, but really we could have awarded any one of you. The work was so good. Also, I do want to say that even though we had to pick 3, I really hope that all of you stick with it, that you all become journalists, right? That you discover what Annalise discovered and what David and Hans and I and all of us have discovered, that you just can't, you can't beat this job, right? Where else can you talk to powerful people like Abe Shinzo and imagine him in his underwear? So we had to make some hard choices, okay? And by vote and discussion, the scholarship committee has chosen the following winners of the 2022 Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship. And to announce the winners, I will ask my colleagues to step up here. And Manzuru, you would do it by Zoom, but you're second, okay? You're second, Manzuru. Before
Yeah, I'm second. Yes.
you're second, yeah, because we're gonna
Yeah.
do pen,
Then
photography, and then video, and you're doing photography. So I'll have one of my colleagues in the committee announce each of the winners, and I'd like to start with David McNeil. Would you be kind enough to announce the pen runner-up and winner?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Martin, for making me think of Tarawasso and his underpants. Another pleasant thought. I used to be a journalist with the Independent newspaper and then The Economist. I've since gone into full-time academia. I recognize some of my students here. I didn't pay any of them to be here. I'll just make that clear. Okay, so runner-up first. This is the runner-up for the print media. The runner-up is Mega Bintang Irdan Putri. She is with, I'm not sure if she's here today. She's with Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University. She wrote an opinion piece which was hinged around a charity event for refugees from Ukraine and Yemen in Tokyo. Her piece was a mix of opinion and reportage. I thought that it showed great consciousness and empathy with a neglected group of people, refugees. They don't get a lot of press, especially in Japan. People who are marginalized from society. It was, I think everybody agreed, it was a nice evocative piece of writing. And we were impressed, as with all of the, well, most of the people who wrote, that you were writing in a second language. I don't think any of us could write that well in Japanese or another language. I'll just read one paragraph from it. In the event that night, people did not fail to recognize the major crisis underway and the most concerning one, the humanitarian crisis. Russia's military operation in Ukraine has caused damage to cultural properties. Schools and maternity hospitals that have been targeted by Russia's bombs and has led to 198 deaths and 811 injured civilians. So, the piece was not only evocative, but it was also timely. Unfortunately, of course, those statistics have gone up. So we would like to award the prize to Mega, if she here.
Are you here, Mega? The runner-up, Mega? No?
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, but I'm actually currently outside.
Okay. Are you on Zoom? I can't.
We can't see her.
Well, we can't see you, but congratulations anyway.
Okay, and the winner of the prize is Hanako Lowry. Hanako reported on Minami Soma. She went to Minami Soma and she reported from Kitaizumi, the coast of Kitaizumi, on surfing, the return of surfing to that area. It was also a piece about the Reconstruction Olympics, if you all recall that, from last year. We thought it was clear, it was nicely reported, it was really well written, and it had a lovely feel for the kind of issues of the day and the problems of the day, including the controversy which is going on at the moment over whether TEPCO is going to dump radioactive water into the sea, of course, off the Daiichi power plant, and the impact of that on places like Kitaizumi. I'll just read again one paragraph as a sample. On a weekday evening on Minami Soma's Kitaizumi coast, surfers trickle in from their post-work session. Trading workwear for wetsuits, they set off for the coastline with surfboards in hand. They may be a regular sight at any local surfing spot. However, for many here in Minamisoma, this site alone is close to a miracle. I thought that was a really nice piece of writing. She's a worthy winner. Hanako isn't here with us either. She's one of my ex-students, by the way. So we congratulate her in her absence, and we'll give the prize to her. Thank you very much.
We do have these certificates to give the winners. I will give this one. David, can you give this to Hanako, or I'll put it over here. Okay. So next is Monzuru. You will announce
Martin.
the winner in our photography category.
Yes. Thank you, Martin. I'm Manzoorul Haq. I'm a journalist from Bangladesh, as it has been previously mentioned, as president of the club in 2009, 2010. And I come from the same territorial place where from Swadesh is, from Bengal. So probably you know that photojournalism is encountering a difficult phase these days, because photojournalism is part of print. And print media is in crisis. Subscription is going down, income is also declining. And as a result, this photojournalism having double impact. That with the and these days, with the advent of mobile phone technology, with photographic capability of quality images, professional photographers in many of the mainstream media around the world are facing redundancy. And editorial supervisors, for example, my editorial supervisors, previously I could assign a photographer for some of the reports or news reports I'm focusing on, which is very local oriented, Bangladesh, Japan oriented. And we could pay the photographer a certain amount of money. But these days, no. My editorial supervisors instructed that I have to take the photograph as well. And on these cases. So this is the problem, is the photographers, that media professional photographers are facing worldwide. Yet quality photography with the convincing message of what have been going on around us has not lost any of its appeal or as well as its significance. And this is probably what attracting many young people in different parts of the world to continue this profession. And I'm glad that we have quite a good number of submission in this photography category during this crisis period as well. And this is because all of the quality works we received made our job of selecting a little bit difficult. I personally feel that we could award all of them if we had the means, but we didn't have that. We had to choose two of the entries, and most of those we have, and unanimously we agreed that these are the entries we should award, but also encourage all others who participated that their works is also no less quality than what we have selected. And and the first runner-up we have selected, she has submitted a portfolio in black and white portfolio of foreign students community in Japan during the pandemic. And pandemic had a very deep impact on society, particularly foreign students in Japanese university. They face many problems, and this entry has convincingly portrayed on those difficulties. And first runner-up is Maria Elizabeth Thomas. She's from Ritsumeikan University, Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University.
I see Maria on the Zoom there.
Maria.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
so much.
Maria. Yes.
Yeah, excellent submission. Thank you.
And among the entries, one that stands out is a portfolio that's very, very interesting, that traces a Jersey bull that was taken to Hachijojima Island for breeding purpose. And the young photographer followed the bull, and through the story of this single cow, depicted the picture, depicted in pictures, tried to trace the problems related to cattle breeding and beef production in Japan, which is trying to become sustainable. And this young photographer with his wonderful portfolio is Kaji Takaoka. Of Temple University of Japan. Congratulations, Kaji. And he's the winner of photography section. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Kaiji, and to you as well, Maria, joining us remotely. And Monzuru, thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. Last but certainly not least is the video category. And I have another excellent colleague to announce the runner-up and the first place winner in video. Hans, do you want to take over?
Hello, my name is Hans Greimel. I'm the Asia editor of a magazine called Automotive News that covers the global automotive industry. I'm a longtime FCCJ member, and I'm also a part-time instructor at the Graduate School of Journalism at Waseda University. And it's really my pleasure to be here today and to review all your works. I'm here to announce the video awards, but we all took a hand in grading and reviewing all of the papers and the submissions. And it was really exciting to see the talent, the enthusiasm, and the skill that you all brought to your submissions. So even if you win or you lose, I hope you all go home feeling very proud of the work that you submitted, because it was very impressive. And I'm here to talk about the video submissions. And I think that we talked about print and photography being in kind of a downward spiral, but video is, I think, one of the areas of journalism that has a bright future. This is something that really brings together the pictures, the storytelling, and puts it into a medium that a lot of people find interactive and compelling. And we had 4 great submissions in the video category. And for those of you who are didn't submit the print or didn't submit the video, and stuck to print or photos, I would like to encourage you to also brush up on your video skills, because that is a way forward in journalism. And we have 4 excellent submissions here that I'd like to recognize. And I'll start off with the honorable mention, and that is a student from Waseda University. She is an undergraduate majoring in journalism there. She graduates in the spring of March 2023, and her name is Wang Jue. She did a video piece called Women with Tattoos, and it was explored the taboo subject of women who practice tattoo inking in Japan and the prejudices that they face here. And she interviewed really a breadth of different women, both the tattoo artists and the women who collect the tattoos. And she was really able to get intimate insights from these women, who often share kind of their hurtful experiences and dealing with prejudice here. And then they relate how getting into tattoos had a special transformative effect on their lives. And in so doing, she really brought out a little scene side of the tattoo art world here in Japan. So congratulations. Now I'd like to move on to introduce the winner. And this person was also is also an undergraduate at Waseda University. She majors in undergrad international liberal studies, and she also graduates in March 2023. She's also a student member of the FCCJ, and in the future, she wants to be a foreign correspondent. Her name is Karine Kaneko. And I'll say a little bit about Kaneko-san's, go ahead, thank you. I'll say a little bit about Kaneko-san's submission. Her video submission was about the male host industry in Japan, and she explored this kind of unique underworld of men entertaining women for money. And she looked at it both from the side of the female customers and the male hosts who serve them. And she really brought to life this, this story through a broad range of interviews, both the customers and the male hosts. And she was able to bring it out through candid and emotional confessions that are really difficult to capture in any form of journalism, but especially on camera, because she had them on camera really talking about emotional, embarrassing, and really damaging issues. Her report tackles it tackles a little scene side of Japan's entertainment industry, and it sheds new light on the layers of exploitation that go on inside it. Kaneko shows that the male host industry is not really a true equal opportunity counterpart to the traditional female hostess industry. Instead, ironically, the women customers, who are often hostesses themselves or marginalized workers, they actually fall victim to the male hosts who prey on them emotionally and physically for their money. Kaneko-san makes good use of street footage from Kabukicho, the red light district here in Tokyo, and she interviews a host of characters to flesh out her report. Kaneko-san plans to use her scholarship award and put that money towards buying a new computer or a new camera. So thank you and congratulations.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for announcing the winners, David, Hans, and Manzur. I appreciate it. I did want to say one more time that no matter whether you won or lost this time, we liked all the submissions, and we want you all to continue with this. There's also next year if you want to try again. You don't have, there's no cap on making applying. But really, we wanted everybody to keep going because we think you're doing great work, and we do think that this is such an important thing, especially in this era. So thank you so much to the applicants. Thank you so much to the winners. Thank you so much to everybody else who came tonight. This wraps up the 2022 Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship Awards Dinner. Thank you all for coming. The meeting is adjourned. You want just the applicants? What do you think, Drini? You want to get just the applicants in the photo, or? Okay, so we have two things. Sorry, two postscripts here. One is we'd like to get a photo of all the applicants. So if you all would come up here, we'll get a photo of you. The second thing is across the hall, we have on display the photographs and the videos. Is that correct? Or just photographs? Sorry, just photographs. So despite all the wonderful things that Hans said about video, we do not have it available to you. But we do have the photographers who are facing all the difficulties that Monzur mentioned. But you can see their work in the room across the hall, right? So thank you again. If y'all would come forward for a photograph to commemorate this, and yeah, great work.